Hi there, everyone. My name is Priyak Jitani. I'm an MD MBA student here at Yale University, and today I'm doing another residency deep dive. I've been doing a lot of these videos because I think they provide a great insight into what it takes to get into a residency of a certain specialty, and also because I personally benefit a lot when I just learn about these specialties because I have friends that are entering them. So without further ado, today's is going to be focused on OB-GYN, obstetrics, and gynecology. You can see me here. This is from me in my OB-GYN rotation with a model baby. We're going to go over average step 1 and step 2 score, number of publications, number of service experiences that you would need to get into OB-GYN residency. All of the data that we're going to talk about today is from the AAMC report on residents, and it's from the incoming class of residents between 2020 and 2021. I'm going to be the incoming class, I think, from 2022 to 2023, but I applied from 2021 to 2022. So this is 1 year before that. I do have some comparisons here between OB-GYN and general surgery, and I put the comparisons here not to imply that one specialty is better than another, because I tell you that I have brilliant friends here at Yale who are going into both general surgery and OB-GYN. It's all a matter of preference, but when you compare the two, it at least provides a bit of insight into the variation and the ways that these specialties may differ. So what is OB-GYN? So someone who is applying to residency, you likely know this, but someone who is just from the outside looking in, obstetrics and gynecology, when you look at the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecologists, ACOG, which is the governing body for OB-GYN and puts on a lot of the guidelines related to OB-GYN. OB-GYN are doctors who have special training and education in women's healthcare. They are dedicated to the medical and surgical care of women's health throughout the lifespan. Residency is usually 4 years, and then you can also do fellowships in additional subsections of OB-GYN, such as pelvic medicine, gyn-onc, which is gynecologic oncology, which is cancers of the cervix, ovaries, uterus, vagina, vulva. You have MFM, which is the maternal fetal medicine and reproductive. Endocrinology and infertility, REI is what it's known as, and that's when individuals may have trouble conceiving, and so you're focusing on assisting individuals with that. Now that we've talked a bit about OB-GYN, let's now break down the residency in terms of males and females, and also the IMGs versus MDs and DOs. So currently, as of right now, across the United States, when you look at accredited OB-GYN residencies, there's a total of 5,563 active residents. OB-GYN is about 4 years, so this implies that there's around 1,300 new residents that come in every year, but because it's 4 years, you have a total of around 5,500. You can see that 76% of these residents are MDs, 7.4% are IMGs, and 15.7% are DOs. Part of this is a function of the fact that there are just fewer DO schools than MD schools, but part of it may also be due to the fact that certain MD schools may just have stronger pipelines for going into OB-GYN compared to DO schools. That may not always be true, but again, just hypotheses. You can notice that there's a disparity between males and females. 85% of residents who are OB-GYN residents are female, and 14.7% are male. And you can also see that within the IMGs and MDs, that disparity between males and females also still exists. The percentages that I have next to each of these is the percent of the total. So, for example, 553 is about 10% of the total of 5,500. Okay, so now that we've looked at this, let's now compare it to just surgery in general. General surgery is more just related to residential training. It's usually 6 to 7 year program related to surgical issues related to the abdomen. And here you can see that the males is about 55%, females is 44%. That's one of the places where I saw the starkest difference, the genders. You can also notice that the general surgery residency program across the nation, has around 9,000 spots, whereas OB-GYN has only 5,000 spots. And the reason for this is, again, because surgery is around 7 years long. And so that whole 7 years, you obviously are going to have more people training if there's going to be 7 years of training versus 5 years of training, 4 years of training in the case of OB-GYN. So just wanted to put this here as a nice comparison. Of course, you can find all of this data in the report on residents, which is going to be linked in the description below. Now let's get to the meat of this issue, which is talking about Step 1 and Step 2 CK scores. If you watched any of my previous videos, you'll know that the way to read this diagram is that the Step 1 score is here, the Step 2 score is here. The intersection of any of these two columns and rows is going to tell you the intersection of the two. So for example, 117 starting first-year residents had a step 1 score of 220 to 229 and a step 2 score of 240 to 249, which is about 8.8% of the incoming class. Notice the denominator here is 1336 because we're only looking at the individuals who started OB-GYN residency in 2020 to 2021. So you're looking at the intern class and you're looking at the stats of individuals who matched. And because of that, you're going to have selection bias because this is people who matched. So these scores are usually going to be a bit higher than what you might just expect the average of the overall applicant pool to be. So with that being said, now you can also like go down the column entirely, and you know that 20.7% of matched OB-GYN residents had a step 2 CK score of 230 to 239. Similarly, 2% of matched OB-GYN residents had a step 1 score above 259. So that's how you would read this chart. If you now want to like break it down by percentiles, you can see that around 1,300 applicants applied and matched, right? These are just the matched individuals. You'll see that about 200 of them have had complex scores. And again, the reason for this is if you go to a DO school, you usually have to take the complex on top of the USMLE step 1. Therefore, you usually have a large number of step 1 and step 2 scores and a fewer number of complex scores because people who don't go to DO schools don't necessarily take the complex scores. And now you actually see that the average step 1 score for the matched incoming year of residence was around 230, and the matched step 2 CK score was around 245. Similarly, if you want to then look at the range, you can see that around the 75th percentile of matched individuals had a step 2 CK score of 255 and a step 1 score of 241. And what does 75th percentile means? What that means is if you have a score of 241 and you matched OB-GYN, that means you scored better than 75% of individuals who matched, right? So that's what percentile means. Now let's just go ahead and compare this to general surgery. And I do this again to just provide you an insight into the range of scores that allow you to match into these specialties. It's intended to show you that even if you think you did badly, or even if you think you did really well, you actually can still match into any of these specialties, right? So you can see that even if there were individuals who scored a 211 on step 1 who were able to match into OB-GYN, there were individuals with a 217 on step 1 who were able to match into general surgery. The distribution of scores is shown here, again, purely for the sake of showing you the wide variation, as well as the number of individuals. The number of general surgery individuals starting their first year around 1,350, about the same as the number of first-year OB-GYN residents as well. Okay, great. So now that we have all of this, let's now pivot and end with the number of research experiences and the number of abstracts, publications, and all of those things. The average number of publications for an OB-GYN resident was around 5.7. You can see that. Well, the average number of abstracts, presentations, and publications. So you can add those up, and that's around 5.7. The number of research experiences was 3.4. The number of work experiences was 3.7. And the number of volunteer experiences was around 8.9. The way they classify this is that when you actually type your application for OB-GYN, you actually fill out the ERAS. And in an ERAS, you actually get to write down all the experiences you had and whether it was a research experience, volunteer experience, work experience. And as you do that, you can like add those up. And that's exactly the statistical method they did here. You can see that if you actually had more than 13 abstracts, presentations, and publications, you were in the 90th percentile of matched OB-GYN residents. And then similarly, you can apply the same thing here. GS stands for general surgery, and this is just another reference point to show you another surgical specialty to compare to. So with all of this being said, I hope this was helpful. If it was, please drop a like. Let me know if there's any specialties, any questions you have, and comment them below. And otherwise, I will see you all in the next video. Please subscribe if you can. It means a lot to me, and I look forward to staying in touch. Peace. Take care of yourself and try to take care of someone else too if you can.